Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Holocron Chronicles, talking about Star Wars here on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. This is episode 127. I am your humble servant, Star Wars guy, one of two, Charlie Carden, joined as always by my number one X-Wing flying Jedi pal, Peter Stein. Peter, good morning. How are you today?
Good morning. Doing all right.
Rock and roll. Well, we've got a good show for you today. We are branching back out after wrapping up the exciting Ewok adventures that we had in the last several episodes, plus the Star Wars Visions. We are jumping back into something that we've not tackled since Peter and I started doing the show together, which is a comic book arc. We're following things kind of loosely chronologically as far as how it came out in production, with the exception of Visions interrupting that. You know, there was the Ewoks, that was the 80s. Things were quiet for a few years. And then in 1993, unless I'm very much mistaken, we got the Thrawn trilogy, the novels
91.
by Timothy Zahn. 91.
It's as old as I am.
Yeah, that's because I was in high school. And I remember, as I mentioned to you in notes earlier this week, that we had the first editions floating around this house. Because as I mentioned, I bought the house I grew up in. So I know that my mother picked them up because it's a very big Star Wars house. And I'm sure we all read them. But that was many years ago. And I don't explicitly recall much about what the book was like, certainly versus what we're talking about. But anyway, my point is, I'm really bad at reading books, but I'm really great at reading comics. So I said to Peter, hey, since we both have a subscription Marvel Unlimited, and every Star Wars comic, certainly from that era, is on Marvel Unlimited, this will be there. So Heir to the Empire was the first of those books, and it was a 6-issue miniseries in 1995-ish, I think. And we split up the first 3 issues, and that's what we're going to talk to you about today. But before we do that, we have some Star Wars news, which is awesome. But as always, this is the part of the show where I give love, homage, and respect to the delightful people who are part of our Secret Friends Unite Patreon over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. When you join us there, you do get a ton of exclusive programming, including a great show called The Facts of Geek Life, which Peter and I do together. Currently, we are just about to start the final season of Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica. We could not be more excited, but we've been talking about that since we started, which was like now 3 years that we've had the Patreon. So we're finally completing a project. I'm very excited about that. But that's an exclusive program. All of our shows come out early. For example, you may be listening to this show on a Wednesday when it comes out, but patrons listen to it on a Sunday. So a little bit of extra jazz to get your week started. And we've got a great exclusive channel for our patrons over on our Secret Friends Unite Discord. This is the way it works. Your first week is free when you sign up. Your first month, half off. So that's $1, a minimum of $1. And then you can stick around for as little as $2 a month. It is a bargain with 3 years of great entertainment and growing. And we would love to have you there. We would love to have you just try us out and see what you think about that. So again, patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Hope to see you there. All right, let's talk about some news. Now, Peter, it's no secret that there is one celebrity that I generally loathe amongst almost all others. And he is the source of this first story this week. I can't handle the emotion. I'm gonna let you talk about it.
So we got a update that Star Wars Starfighter, which I think has been pretty close to wrapping principal photography.
Right. Yep.
We've gotten notes that there is a lightsaber duel in it that is in the water, but of note, it's shot by none other than Tom Cruise, which is hysterical. So we'll see what kind of... I mean, Tom Cruise has done a little bit of directing from what I've seen. I don't think he's done anything like massive. Yeah. At least not on his own.
Right. No, I agree. I don't think he has anything on record like that.
But he does have a lot of familiarity with action scenes and how to do very complex things that move around when you've got multiple different things happening at the same time and you're trying to keep it in camera and keep that energy going. So I think it could be interesting. It doesn't say anything of what he was doing other than he ruined his nice shoes walking in water. That's it. So we don't really know.
I'll bet he can afford new shoes.
Oh, I'm sure he can.
What's interesting is that, I have two quips. Naturally, first of all, because it was underwater, we're going to miss the opportunity to see Star Wars characters do the Tom Cruise run. which you can't see because we're not on video.
Yeah, the
but
knife hand run.
That's where you move your arms up and down like you were Edward Scissorhands and you were chopping up cake or something.
Or you're an action figure,
Or you're an action figure, yes, with no like G.I. Joe Gen 1 without the swivel arm battle grip where your arms just go up and down. Well, actually, no, those at least had a bend in the elbow.
Some early ones had just locked elbows. And
stuff. But if you look at the 1978 Star Wars figures, for example, those were straight.
Yeah, even the early 90s Star Wars figures did the same thing.
That's right. Yeah, your Power of the Force 95 series.
Still have a lot of those.
They were rolling around here at some point, but they've all dispersed over the years between kids and sales and such. So, And then secondly, Peter, I know you're not as avid movie theater goer as like April and I are, but did you happen to see last summer the final Mission Impossible movie?
I did, yes.
The absolutely ridiculous sequence that he did in the Arctic, where he was stripped down to his underwear and then he swam
that was
up, and I was like, that was So that I'm just. I think about
Mission Impossible just has to keep. Mission Impossible pulls like the Fast and the Furious, where they just have to keep upping the stakes,
keep making it more ridiculous. But I mean. It was a very exciting scene because the entire portion before it was he was fighting somebody in an engine room of a submarine or something, and then he swam in frigid waters but still somehow survived. So my point is that in all of itself suggests something really exciting. I mean, he oozes excitement. That's what he does.
Yeah, he's very good at that.
Yeah, so that suggests, and obviously he's working in conjunction with director Sean Levy, who was instrumental in what the hell was he part of Stranger Things, Sean Levy?
I don't think so, no.
What the hell was I just watching that I wrapped up and I'm like, oh, Sean Levy was a part of this.
He was on the Atom Project, Night at the Museum, Real Steel, stuff like that.
Oh my gosh.
All of which are pretty freaking solid movies.
Yeah. So he was part of I think Deadpool and Wolverine. Wasn't that him?
Oh my
maybe. God. I know. You can see all the great preparation. And even skimming through this article. And again, we typically get our Star Wars news from StarWarsNewsNet.com. So we try to keep a pretty common source and pretty reliable. So I apologize, but it's a great opportunity for you to hit us up on one of the socials or certainly at secretfriendsunite@gmail.com and say, hey, dummy, you didn't do your research. Sean Levy actually is most well known in the genre world for XYZ. I'm scrolling up and down and not seeing it. Well, shame on me. Well, anyway, I will give Tom Cruise a modicum of credit because, again, he does really focus on creating excitement and buzz and doing the stunts and all this different stuff. So, so I'll be serious.
It'll be neat, I think.
Yeah. It will be neat, I think. Exactly. All right. And then, so that was our light and fluffy. Did we do that in reverse? Are you supposed to follow with something light and fluffy before you get to the big news? It was kind of like an appetizer. That was an appetizer. And then this is your main course. So for many, many years, since the Disney acquisition of Star Wars, which was back in 2012, I'm going to say, just off the top of my head. Because they do, 2014. No, well, it said it's ending a nearly anyway, at any rate, Kathleen Kennedy, who has run Lucasfilm in that time, is ending a nearly 14-year tenure, that would be 2012, as head of Lucasfilm and handing the reins over to, and this has been speculated, but it's finally real that the reins are being taken over jointly, and this kind of reminds me of the joint ownership or direction of DC Studios right now by James Gunn and Peter Safran. But I don't know what kind of relationship these two have. It's Dave Filoni, and I was in the pre-roll. I was really just crunching up this poor woman's name, so I apologize. Lywin Brennan, and then Peter had noted that Lywin Brennan is director of business affairs at Lucasfilm.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it says in the notes?
President and general manager of Lucasfilm Business. Yep.
President and general manager. So what this really kind of sounds like, first of all, it's enormous news. Kathleen Kennedy, as would be almost anyone in this position, has always had a bullseye on her back. Anything that fans haven't liked that has come out of Star Wars, they throw it right at her. Like she personally said, I want to produce this thing you don't like. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. That part of it is interesting, without a doubt. But part of this kind of dichotomy for me is that you have Filoni, who is this great creative, who some people like and some people don't, because that's simply the way it works. And she is, it's by the sounds of it, not necessarily creative. So you've got the right hand and the left hand, I guess, is the best way to potentially way to describe it. Because
it sounds like he's going to be focusing on the creative stuff, and she's going to be focused on the money side, which is
right.
The
money, right?
If it was me coming in there, I don't know a whole lot about managing a business and doing all that crap. And so for me, it would be like, yeah, you handle that, and I'll just create things. So I get it.
It's and again, I hearken it back to the relationship at DC Studios with Gunn and Safran. They've been director-producer partners for decades, friends and obviously collaborators. And a producer's job. I've always kind of gone back and forth. And you and I have asked some people about this in different interviews we've done, like with Rod Roddenberry on our Spotlight feature. What does an executive producer do? And overall, I've heard that, in the grossest sense of it, well, the job of an executive producer is to put butts in seats, to make something come in time on budget, look the way it's supposed to, be appealing, and kind of check all the boxes. So I've always found it somewhat quizzical exactly what that means, but yeah. I mean, Filoni has given us, starting with the. Did he start with the? Was he with the Clone Wars?
He was with the Clone Wars. Yeah,
that was that his baby.
He got hired on from Avatar: Last Airbender over to Lucasfilm to start the Clone Wars. Gotcha. And that is, as we know, started with a theatrical film that nobody saw except for me and maybe you. I saw it. That summer I went and saw it. I was like, oh, it was very exciting. My kids were that age. So I don't remember. I don't think I saw it in the theater, but I definitely I have the DVD on the shelf. So
yes, same here. And really what it is it's like 3 or 4 episodes of the show.
Yeah, it's
nothing super
a lot of the
theatrical.
scenes from that are in the rest of the show, except for the Stinky the Hutt.
Stinky the Hutt, which is escaping me. Gonna be a pivotal. It's isn't that Rada the Hutt?
I think it's Rada.
It was, and that's going to be Jeremy Allen White's character in The Mandalorian. So look at that, far ranging, coming back again. So anyway, it's funny. They even mention. I was shooting off the hip, but even this article says, well, it's very similar to James Gunn and Peter Safran. Exactly. It's creative and business paired together. And I think it's great because then again, you don't have one, overlord who's dictating everything, who doesn't have somebody who's, kind of really on the button, which was a lot of the complaints that at least a few people I know made about the prequels, with George just kind of going, I'm going to go in this direction, and everybody just yes-manning him to death and not really having a good counterbalance. And would we have seen more or a better direction out of the prequels if someone had been there to say, well, George, I really don't think that, or Marshall Lucas, they always say Marshall Lucas was the one that made the original trilogy the way it was and made it the classic that it was, and then she was out of the picture by the time they got to the prequels, and maybe that made a difference. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is fantastic news. It says the move has not been officially announced, but it could happen within the next 2 weeks, and this is an article, obviously, just from the other day. So, I'm very excited about this. Star Wars is making its return to the theaters for the first time in 7 years this summer, which is a long, even by Star Wars standards, it's about average.
It's not that long for Star Wars because the Return of the Jedi was what, 1985, 1983, and then it was 1999 until we had.
Yeah,
I mean, granted, the special editions happened in like 97, so there was a little bit. But
right, so a 10 to 15 year gap. Like if you added all the gaps together and then made an average out of it, that's probably not much. But it has been on television or streaming television with Disney Plus and the time in between, to a varying degree of success depending on who you're asking. And again, I've always maintained that entertainment is what entertains you, and that's really what's critical. But there are certain shows within that I've heard nobody say anything good about, or just the very hardest of hardcore people, which we try not to focus on that. Peter and I do with anything that we do. We try to be critical. We try to find the good, and we try to say, hey, I really didn't think this was good. But we don't try to be ridiculous fanboys, and we don't try to be the dark cloud of everything. We try to find a balance in between. So that being said, I find this, I find this news kind of uplifting. I'm excited about a new direction because Kathleen Kennedy wasn't really a creative per se. She was a businesswoman, which I appreciate. So adding the balance of another business person, which would be Brennan, and then having a creative with Filoni, who has had success with, working with Jon Favreau, which I'm sure will continue, with, The Mandalorian and the shows that followed, to varying success. I think will be a benefit to us. So I'm excited about this. So we'll see an announcement within the next couple of weeks. And then from there, I'm sure we'll start to hear about new projects. Hopefully this will take the same direction that DC Studios has, which gave us some fantastic projects last year and has a lot of other ones in the mix that I've absolutely loved. So I'm excited about that. So good deal. All right. Peter, any final thoughts before we move on?
I just hope that they make good things. Some of the creative decisions recently have been a little iffy, in my opinion. So it's one of those I hope that Filoni gets his storytelling creative support structure to where he needs it.
Right.
Agreed. He was leaning a little bit towards what we might describe as George in the prequels, with especially the last couple episodes of Ahsoka, I think. Yeah. And so it's just one of those I know you can do good things, just make sure you do the good things.
You're taking that could be the name of this episode now. Kind of do good things or be good.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So it's but I mean, we've seen what he can do. He can do amazing stuff. So just do more of that.
Right.
There's certain people you need to not listen to, and there's certain people that you should listen to more.
Good.
So just make it good.
Just make it be good. Well, cool. Well, we will know more, and as we do know more, we will tell you about it right here. All right. Well, let's squeeze on to talking about Heir to the Empire. And again, I kind of put the cart before the horse. I talked a little bit about this in the intro roll, but this is a mini-series version of the 1991 book. Thank you very much.
Which I have a first edition on my
shelf and there. We did too, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's still my mom's storage, bins. And someday when I inherit her possessions, I'll have
got it for $7 in a thrift store.
Wow!
Person didn't know what they had. It was
I was going to say
hardcover.
Yeah, what is? I wonder what a first edition mint of that would go if you went to eBay or something.
I don't know. I'm not selling it. It's one of my favorite books.
Oh, sure. Oh, absolutely. Well, then you're going to have some great insights. I'm looking forward to it. But you can find this in a lot of different ways. And again, it's a 6-issue limited series, which we're talking about the first 3 because I thought it would give us the opportunity. If we cut it in half, I thought we could talk about it in a little bit more detail, especially since we're kind of hanging out until we have new content to talk about. So that's why we're going through and trying to do this in some depth. But you can find this if you are a frequenter of your local comic shop wherever you live. Like here in Grand Rapids, we have, of course, Argos Books, which has been a sponsor of the show, Tardy's Collector's Corner, and the Comic Signal. Those are 3 comic shops that I frequent here in the Grand Rapids area. Down in Kalamazoo, you have shops like Fanfare or Rocket Comics. They're great shops all over the state of Michigan and certainly all over the country, all over the world. You can go to that local shop and tell them this is something that you are interested in. They might point you to single issues if they have them. I'm not currently aware of the market value. This has been printed and reprinted, I'm sure, many, many times in physical form over the years. But the way that Peter and I accessed it is through Marvel Unlimited, which has been, I'm waiting for them to start sending me checks because I never stop talking about how much I love Marvel Unlimited. That's a service that I've had for nearly 15 years now. That is your kind of all you can eat the kind of comics on demand. And when the Star Wars license got taken over back in 2012, everything that Star Wars had published at that point had ended up on him, both the canonical versions in 2015 with that comic, and then the Legends or the Extended Universe comics that had preceded it, which included this. If you're looking to purchase a collected edition, you will find that on Amazon, Kindle/Comixology. So I've never really understood, because there used to be a Comixology app. Now there's not. Now you just find it on Kindle. But on Kindle, you can't make purchases, so you have to go to the app, and it's a whole thing. But anyway, you can find it there.
It becomes interesting. But
yeah. But yeah, I would highly recommend it. So quick summary, and then we're going to get into notes about individual issues. Peter, I went through, and as I was reading the issues, I had my laptop open, and I just made a note here and there.
But I didn't make notes because I was more just like tracking, because I've read the book so many times.
Right, and that's why I would say, as a subject matter expert, I'm happy to let you drive, and I'll pipe in. But anyway, quick summary: it's been 5 years since Return of the Jedi, which would ironically put it in the same time frame as The Mandalorian in the canonical universe. This is considered non-canon for by Crook. The Rebel Alliance has destroyed the Death Star, which we knew, defeated Darth Vader, the Emperor, yada yada yada, and driven the remnants of the old Imperial Starfleet to a distant corner of the galaxy. Really, in a lot of ways, very similar to canon. But then things tend to get a little different. Princess Leia and Han Solo are married, that is correct, and expecting Jedi twins, that is not canonical. And Luke Skywalker has become the first in the long-awaited line of Jedi Knights, which is also the way things went. But thousands of light years away, I don't know how far they consider the unknown regions because it's outside of the galaxy.
He wasn't, when we see him in this story, he's not in the unknown region.
Right. I was
the galaxy.
I was just kind of doing it to a compare contrast versus this versus canon. Because if you ever look at, there's a lot of great websites, I'm probably sure that have a map of the galaxy, and it shows, here's this is, and like Tatooine is kind of in the south end, and the unknown regions is kind of pretty far to the northwest outside the galaxy. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure how that would stack.
It's to the galactic southwest of the Rishi Maze.
Right, exactly. 12 parsecs outside the Rishi Maze. Let's see. I was yammering. But anyway, the last of the Emperor's warlords had taken command of a shattered fleet, readied it for war, and pointed it at the fragile heart of the new Republic. For this dark warrior has made 2 vital discoveries that could destroy everything these courageous men and women of the Rebel Alliance fought so hard to build: the explosive concentration that results in a towering epic of action, invention, mystery, and the spectacle on the grand scale. And I did drop in here, Peter, the cover of these, and as I mark in my notes later, it's funny, the cover to the first issue was the mirror of it, and of course, I pointed in the exact wrong direction, but on my shelf of Luke Skywalkers, I have a Luke from this, in that, and this was the box he came in, because he was one of those boxed EU figures. Yep. But it's him standing there, and then he has one of those little lizardy things in here, which we'll get into here in a moment, which I never knew what the hell it was, but now I know.
Yeah. Hilariously, they are actually in Rebels.
Okay, so
they are in the background of Thrawn's office. And they are art on the wall, but they are there.
Yeah, and as you will learn as we walk through this, there are a ton of set pieces and characters and things that were made canonical by Filoni in particular.
Yep.
After they were set up with this, like, first one I noticed right off the bat was, and he was played by Xander Berkeley, who's an actor that I love because he was on Fox's 24, as Captain Pelion. So we get him. Yeah, we get him right away.
Yeah, hilariously, in this particular comic, he does not have his signature mustache.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
That mustache is in basically every single iteration of the character, except for this one.
And again, wild. I didn't record the creative team, but I got to tell you, as a lifelong reader of comic books, I absolutely loathe this artwork. I think it's really messy.
Yeah.
I always get a little more turned off when I'm seeing a comic adaptation of characters from a live action medium. So does your Han Solo look like Harrison Ford? Not even a little bit. Does is your Luke look like Mark Hamill? And again, if this is 5 years later, okay, well, what did Mark Hamill look like in 1987? What did any of them look like in 5 years after Jedi? Because
one of my favorite ones that happens, I think in the second one, or maybe it's the third one, is like, here's Princess Leia. Actually, it's the fourth one, so there doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But here's Princess Leia, who's supposed to be like 4 or 5 months pregnant, standing in her underwear, nothing, no belly. It's like, do you know what a pregnant woman looks like, guys?
No spoilers for episode 4 or issue 4, which we're not going to talk about. But yeah, I wouldn't say it took me out of the, like, it made me like really turn me off the story, but the artwork, I thought, and I looked at there were no name talented creatives on this. And again, this was published by Dark Horse Comics, which was an independent publisher, which is still around, and they had a lot of fame in their day. I think Dark Horse had the licenses for Aliens at one point. They had Predator at one point, Terminator, and of course the Aliens and the Predator have all folded back to Marvel, so they publish books like that now. But anyway, all right, we'll start to take us through it then. So we're in issue 1. How does the story get started?
All right. So here's the thing. I have to remember exactly how the comic does it since I know the book.
Right. No problem at all.
So the comic begins, as the book does, with the ever-present hanging in deep space, the Star Destroyer Chimera does its thing. And this is our first introduction to Pelion, where we get the introduction of discipline in the Empire is a little weak. You got people screaming across the bridge.
Oh, right, yeah.
Which
it's becoming a little country.
Yeah,
like, hey, Billy!
Yeah.
What do you want for lunch?
To which Pelion's like, this is the bridge of an Imperial Star Destroyer. We do not yell across the bridge. Like, you see that there's a little bit of discipline stuff, and that comes up later. Pretty drastically. And
big time.
So we have a note that scouts have returned. They've got some stuff. And so then Pelion goes and to inform Grand Admiral Thrawn. Now, in the meantime, when he enters this, we get our first introduction visually here to the Nogri species, who looks vastly different here than they do when they appear in Rebels and in their very brief appearance in Jedi Mysteries of the Sith, I think, is where they made an appearance. Jedi Knight. It's the DLC to
very good.
Jedi Knight. They may also make an appearance in Jedi Outcast, but they look a little different. So in this one, they're rather monstrous. In Rebels, they're a little bit more ape-ish.
Yeah, I thought. He's kind of running around on all fours and doing flips and shit.
So, but they're a hunting species that have very powerful olfactory abilities and are great assassins, and you'll find out later things more about them. But suffice it to say, Rook is Grand Admiral Thrawn's bodyguard. He's a bit of a little shit in the sense that he likes to sneak up on Pelion whenever he shows up. This happens multiple times in the book. But so we have that. And then we have our introduction to the Grand Admiral himself sitting in the dark looking at art of the species that they are currently looking at. And we get our introduction here, which different iterations that we've seen in different media have done this to varying degrees of success. But we get our first introduction to how Thrawn understands who he's fighting by looking at their art, because it allows insight into their psyche. Tap the creative side of the brain.
Right.
So he's like, this particular piece of art shows a lack of creativity. And so this person can be surprised if we do something out of the ordinary, for instance. Like, that's a very simple thing, but he does do that at one point.
Yeah.
So this is where we get our introduction to Thrawn as a different kind of thinker, a different kind of villain. And that's something that I think is very important to remember, is that when Heir to the Empire came out, when Timothy Zahn pitched this, the big thing was, we don't want to have a big supernatural villain like Darth Vader or the Emperor who's using the Force, and the reason that he's in power and is evil is force of the Force and force of personality. Right. And they didn't want that.
Yeah, and stranger still, and this was more canonical because it was a miniseries that I read, is that with the extraordinary xenophobia of the Empire, prejudice against non-human species, that he's big blue dude. He's what's the name of the alien race again?
Chiss.
The Chiss.
Yep.
Yeah,
and Thrawn isn't even his full name. Like, if you go look into the Chiss, like, they have really long names.
He's Thrawnita Johnson.
Thrawn Yerodo.
Yeah, I should make that the name of the episode. Like, Thrawnarita. Thrawnarita. I like it. All right.
Yeah. So.
But that's, and again, there is now a canonical miniseries that goes through kind of how he worked his way up and all this different stuff.
Yep. It's based on the newer books that Timothy Zahn wrote, where he started with the book Thrawn in, I think, 2016, I think is when they released that one.
A little bit. Right, which makes it canonical.
Yes, all of the Thrawn books
okay.
about the rise of Thrawn's rise to power
Post 2015
are all in current Disney canon. However, they are written so that you can read them as if they lead into Heir to the Empire.
Right, exactly. Even though, Thrawn is a character in the Rebels time frame as opposed to the post-Jedi.
Yes, and those events are referenced in the newer Thrawn books.
So I did write that I loved it was illustrated that Thrawn has this great chair that swivels that hangs from the ceiling.
Yeah,
that you can kind of pivot around. I thought I wrote kind of the biggest dick in the room status because he is. He's kind of a big, kind of the biggest of the big shots.
And he knows, and he knows it. Now the interesting thing about Thrawn is that he's always wanting to teach. Mm-hmm. So throughout all the different books that you see him in, like in these three, you see it a bit in the comic. It doesn't come through as strongly. But there's a lot of Thrawn teaching Captain Pellaeon how to be a leader, how to command, how to make tactical decisions, which actually leads Pellaeon into be the leader of the Empire in the later parts of the expanded universe.
Gotcha. Yeah. So more technical stuff. The lettering is kind of a lost art because lettering in comics is now more done digitally. So if you pick up a modern comic, it'll say lettering by VC's Bill Smith. Like VC is the group that does it. But with this, it was clearly done by hand, but it was a really bizarre font. So I found myself kind of stumbling over a lot of the words, being like, "What was he?"
Yeah, I had to start zooming in a little bit because some of the letters jumble a little weird.
Yeah, and I think that's a real disservice, and I don't know if it's the maybe it's somebody, maybe it's a style choice, maybe it's somebody who's new to the craft, and
I think it was just something that they did at that time because there were a couple other Star Wars comics that I read from that time, like the Mara Jade comic and Boba Fett comics that were very very similar.
But I did know. So we jumped to a scene where I did make a couple notes. We starting to catch up where our characters are. Luke is on Coruscant, whining at clouds and having an internal monologue where he's being Luke.
In the book, he's actually speaking to the spirit of Ben Kenobi.
Okay,
so you see him in the distance in here, but you don't actually have that conversation, which actually gives this scene a little bit more meaning.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's a shame. But we see Han is Han and Chewie. I remember this from reading it in the book back in '91. It's like weird little things I remember. Is that they are out doing recruiting of smugglers for straight work, helping with moving convoys
because the New Republic doesn't have enough freighters because I guess you blow up enough of the infrastructure while you're fighting the Empire, you don't have infrastructure.
You don't have it anymore. But I did notice that the word group in one of these looked like grump, which shows up in a lot of meme groups. Welcome to the grump. So we meet Mara Jade. I wrote the one and the only. She is still non-canonical, isn't she? She just
unfortunately. Because she has made so many different appearances in lots of official stuff before then. So like she was in video games, like she was in Mysteries of the Sith, she was in Empire at War, she was in the official trading card game. Like she's all over the place. We did have an action figure of her released somewhat recently.
She would be easy enough to work back in by saying
they've brought in a lot of her titles and stuff already. So like when we're watching Rebels, they already talk about the Emperor's Hand. So
they can work her back in, and they can even work her back in as Luke's wife, and just like, oh well, she got killed or something. And so
in the books,
maybe that's another reason. That's another reason he's so sad. I did note her the boss that she's working for is a dead ringer for comic accurate Spider-Man villain Kraven the Hunter.
He does look very similar to Kraven.
I really did love this. We get Mount Tantus, which is, I believe, a location in either the Bad Batch or Rebels, I think.
Bad Batch. It's in the Bad Batch.
But I'm definitely picking up on this. So,
it's why when Bad Batch season 1 released, I don't think I was on the Star Wars podcast at that point. I remember sitting there with my brother, and as the final episode rolled, I saw a mountain, and I leaned over to my brother, and I was like, this is Mount Tantus for sure. Right. And then it got announced sometime later this summer, like, here's a blueprint. And by the way, it's Mount Tantus. I was like, yeah, I knew that.
that was the big facility where they were holding, God, now I forget the name of the girl.
Omega.
Omega. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So the thing is, when you get to Bad Batch, like in here, they don't show you what's going on in Mount Tantus. which, to be fair, in the books they don't either.
No, okay.
You do not know exactly what's going on. You get like hints. You know that Thrawn is looking for specific technology. Like here we have Mara and Talon talking, and then Thrawn shows up with Pelion, and they want Isalamiri. Now in the book, this is a much longer exchange. There's a lot more going on.
Yeah.
But long story short, there is a dark Jedi guarding Mount Tantus. And they use the Isalamiri, which push away the Force. They create a Force bubble.
Yeah.
And
okay.
So
you
see,
and it's explained. So
it is explained. And so Sabaoth tries to zap him like Palpatine, and the Force lightning fizzles out because there is a Force bubble around Thrawn. Using this ability as leverage, Thrawn is able to convince Sabaoth to join him, and also hangs the carrot of, I know where there's more Jedi you can train. To be fair, Sabaoth is nuts. And there's reasons for that.
He's very Howard Hughes looking kind of.
Yeah,
you expect him to have long fingernails.
Insane.
In the
yeah. So they get Mount Tantus. Mount Tantus was a secret facility specifically guided by the Emperor in the expanded universe. It was where the Emperor put secret things that he didn't want anyone else to have access to, that he was saving for a rainy day. Right. So in this, we learn, I think they mentioned it in here, but there's Sparty cloning cylinders. So this was before we knew much about what the Clone Wars were, how the Clone Wars operated. And so Timothy Zahn was working on what he had. And so he invented this thing called the Sparty clone cylinder, which was how they cloned people. And to be fair, when you watch the prequels and you see Kamino, they are in cylinders, so it's not like too far off.
So we're into issue. We're about into issue 2 now, because our guys go off on an adventure. It's a diplomatic something, and it ends up being a trap. So they get separated. Blah, blah, blah. And so we're now into issue 2. And I noted again, I love the cover art on these. They're obviously very
movie poster-ish.
They're beautifully adapted stills from the film. It's just like a very well created, photograph.
There is one thing that is bothering me that I made note of was Luke's lightsaber is blue.
My exact next note. What? So why? I wonder why could it have been a
coloring issue, a coloring error, or someone forgot to watch Return of the Jedi? I don't know.
Yeah, it's very new, but I think you see he has his Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, the hilt is Return of the Jedi.
So it seems like it's either it does very much seem like it's just an accident, because it doesn't really seem like something.
And the weird thing is that it's actually like relevant in the final book.
Right. Right. Is this the one where that, I don't want to know. I don't want to spoil it, because I think I know what happens. But I wrote the villains, or no, the race they visit are the Bims, so I just dubbed them the Bimbos.
They are not that great. So
And they kind of remind of like the I was just watching the clip upstairs in Star Trek, the Pac-Leds. Are they like the Pac-Leds?
They kind of they kind of are.
I have the biggest hat.
So, now they do, interestingly, in this fight scene on Bimasari, we get Luke Skywalker pulling a Spider-Man, which I think is pretty funny. I don't recall if he did that in the book or not. I'd have to go double check. But like the Nogri are using these plastoid web cannons, and so they can like spray stuff and it'll create a net. And so he just uses it. It's like, well, I got to get over to Han and Leia, and after he defeats his guys, he just grabs one of those sticks and one of the Stokely sticks and just like sprays the webbing and uses it as a swing, which was just great.
I did. What's the name of the Howard Hughes guy? I called him. What was his name again?
Sabaoth. So it depends on who you ask, because like in the multiple different audio versions, like he's called Sabaoth, he's called Kabouth. Like it really depends on who you're asking.
I just called him Gandalf because I thought that kind of nailed
crazy Gandalf. Yeah,
crazy Gandalf. There we go. one thing that really jumped out at me, and I think this definitely happened in the first issue, but it's happening now, is that Thrawn makes everybody call the New Republic the Rebellion. So he's kind of like, well, reality is what I want it to be. Or maybe it's very deliberate because it like keeps everybody fired. Like it doesn't let anybody accept the fact that they're fighting this losing war because
it definitely is a deliberate choice on Thrawn's part because he doesn't want to, one, legitimize the rebellion's victory.
Right, even with words, right?
Yeah, even with words. And two, it gives the Empire the moral high ground of we have been removed from our rightful place of being in control by a usurping authority known as the Rebellion.
Right.
And also, like, Thrawn saw the fall of the Republic to become the Empire, and then, may not really think that the Rebel Alliance has recreated something that's worthy of being called the Republic. So there is also that, because Thrawn has very specific opinions and thoughts on how governments should work and what they should be able to do. It's one of the things that makes Thrawn a very interesting character, specifically when he's being written by Timothy Zahn.
Right.
When you don't see that as much, you don't see it in Rebels because it's not relevant. You get a little bit of it in some of the other things that he appears in, but not much. So for those of you who haven't read the books, there are reasons why Thrawn is a very compelling character and a very compelling villain. Because he actually has reasons for what he's doing. And
I've got reasons.
And at root, like, you look at what Thrawn does, and he is ruthless. Like, it's not in this particular arc, but there's a section later where he deals with a subordinate who fails and refuses to get better, quite ruthlessly. And
so he said, well, I think it's just because you're untrained. So who is your supervisor? Yeah, that's one of those "you're not my supervisor" deals, and then he kills that guy.
Yeah,
love it.
Yeah, he just awesome. And ruthless. So it's one of those things of Thrawn has a method, and he believes himself to be in the right. He believes that he is a good person forced to do somewhat difficult things for the greater good. So if you read about Thrawn and you understand his psyche, that's who he is. And if you ask Timothy Zahn, that's the understanding of who the character is. Like, he is a villain, but not in the vein of Palpatine or Vader, who are just like evil. Thrawn thinks he's right, and some of the things that he does do are justified, and that's what makes him scarier. So
can't disagree. Shifting gears, I did like a note of what I was saying. Every time Pelion gets it wrong calling it the New Republic, you see him kind of tugging in his collar like he thinks he's going to see the back of Thrawn's hand. So back on the New now, is this Coruscant that they're on?
It is Coruscant. This was the book.
They introduced
this is the name. This is the book where the name Coruscant came in. And like, now in canon, we think that the Imperial Palace is the Jedi Temple. It hadn't quite been worked out at this point. So the Imperial Palace was a building that was being used, but we didn't really have like, this used to be the Jedi Temple, because it was never really said where the Jedi had their headquarters, for lack of a better term. And so in the expanded universe, you kind of kept it vague as to like, well, the Jedi were around, but we don't really know what they did or where they were.
Right. I did notice they swapped out. You remember from Ahsoka when they kind of had the kangaroo court for Hera when she was in trouble, and they had the one senator who was like, well, I don't really think anything what you did was legit. They substituted it in for an alien guy. He was a Bothan, right?
Yes, Counselor Falea is.
Yeah, he's kind of they kind of got the weird like kind of ocelot looking kind of faces. No, not quite ocelot. They got this alien look that they look like a critter, so kind of like a
looks like a humanoid capybara.
There you go. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah,
but I just thought he's a real piece of shit, just like the.
He is Falea is a massive tool, and he is like throughout the whole trilogy, you're constantly wondering, like, is this guy on the Empire's payroll? Like, does Thrawn have him in his pocket? No, he's just a shithead.
Yeah, exactly. You've run into plenty of that. Continuity wise, I noticed that Han's hair is entirely gray in some panels, and in some not at all, and in some he has like highlights or something. So just again, I hate to keep ragging on the art, and I'm not naming the artist by name because I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but I just thought that's rough. I mean, because again, you have continuity coordinators in film and in television that you got to stay on top of stuff like that. So if somebody's wearing a shirt, they can't, and the sleeves are rolled up, you can't go to the next scene where the sleeves are rolled down and then go back to another scene where the sleeves are rolled up again, and it's been the same scene. But it does happen.
These things do happen. Like, for instance, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, there's a shot in a whole scene. So the whole scene, Samwise is wearing a vest. There is one shot where he is not. And then he's wearing it for the rest of the scene. So like
he took it off to shake it off.
Sometimes things happen and you're like, oh crap, we can't use that. Right. And then something happens to the other shots and that's all you've got. Now nowadays we could, we could CGI it in, rotoscope it in, like you can, but it's like sometimes it's a blink and you'll miss it thing. So they just don't bother.
Yeah. Wasn't necessarily the case here, which I think
this is different. This is different.
You're kind of starting to see a little cracks in the armor with Thrawn and crazy Gandalf because Thrawn's asking too many questions, and Gandalf's like, "Dude, get out of my face!" Or he's getting up in his Kool-Aid, and he was like, "You asked too many questions." Always beware of somebody who tells you that you asked too many questions. I noticed in this one scene. So we move on to a training sequence. So Luke is getting serious about completing Leia's training because she's obviously done some work, but she doesn't have a saber. And so they come to one scene where it says, "Well, Leia, it's time for you to build a saber." She's like, "Well, I guess I oughta." Because
he's like, "I'll just build it for you then." Fine.
I'll just do it. I wrote Luke, welcome to the gun show, because he's just wearing that. It's not even that muscle shirt that you see him wearing in the figure I mentioned. Yeah. And then Leia's outfit is like and again, this is our second comic accurate knock for a classic costume for the Wasp from the Avengers. So Janet Van Dyne. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so it's a pretty the kind of the yellow over black, and it's kind of with a V shape down the middle.
Interesting.
So it's a little bit weird. But yeah, some talk about a dark Jedi from Dagobah 35 years ago. Luke's not digging on this, so he's going to have to go check that out. We get Wedge back in the next scene because Leia and Han and Wedge have to go off on an assignment.
Wedge did make an appearance, or wait, no, I think he makes an appearance earlier where Han is trying to get a smuggler to thing, and he's like, "Oh yeah, your dude is very obvious."
Oh, that's right. He was,
and Wedge is like, that was the point, because he didn't see the other dude.
Because that scene was all at talk about familiar settings. That was obviously at the canteen, the famous canteen on Tatooine. But I do like that Han, "Hey Leia, let me borrow your saber," because now she has a saber, and he goes up and chops a power line on this ship that's trying to strafe them, which is it's another YT-1300. They
tried to use a fake Millennium Falcon so that they could get them to jump on the ship so they would be captured. And Han's just like, the hilarious thing is the Millennium Falcon has so many random quirks that Han's like, Chewie's not using the bottom cannon. Why isn't he using the bottom cannon?
Yeah, exactly.
Shit, this must not be my ship. And so he goes and runs up with a lightsaber, damages the power cable, and it crashes.
It was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
But yeah, Luke does end up going back to Dagobah and
has another vision.
And yet another vision. Yeah, so he ends up in the cave, and then he sees Mara Jade there. So this is their first their kind of first connection. But they all end up figuring out that they've got to hook up with Lando.
Yes.
So they're like, we got to go to Lando, which is kind of the end of The Empire Strikes Back was the same thing, though they didn't know him at that time. So we go through this whole sequence. They have to follow this like weird sideways Cloud City ship. Is it
it's a shield ship? So
because they have to fly through the middle of a star or something.
They don't have to fly through the middle of a star, but they have to fly very close to a star. So the idea is that your shields can't handle like coronal discharge at that close. So clearly the shields, at least conceptually, are not as powerful as some of the shields we see in other franchises.
Right.
But so they have this giant shield. This has made an appearance in some other media too and other stuff, but it's a giant ship with a giant metal disc, basically, that protects you from the sun. and it's massive because it's supposed to protect capital ships as well. So things like
Right.
Star Destroyers and Mon Calamari cruisers.
But the little tiny,
they have the itty bitty X-wing and the itty bitty Millennium Falcon are like flying on this massive thing in. So
they show up at Lando's deal, and it's some kind of weird strip mining thing that Luke is like, oh, he's like, dude, this is awesome. And I'm like, he says to Lando over comms, and I'm like, is he just buttering his bread? Because it doesn't really look awesome.
Well, you don't really get the full picture in the book. So in the comic, in the book, what this thing is it is a mobile mining facility. So it's like mounted on walkers, basically, which I believe. Like that. Well,
there was a movie about was it the engine of bones or the
like
city of instruments or city of something?
And like for instance, like in Star Wars Visions, there was a casino on walkers. So this is something that they brought back. But this is a giant facility on walkers that is constantly in motion because as this planet rotates, like Mercury, even though Mercury doesn't exactly rotate, but the face of this planet, whenever it's facing the sun, is like this molted wasteland that will kill anything on it. And so this thing has to constantly walk between twilight and darkness to stay in a spot where you can still mine but not be dead. And so this thing is constantly moving. And that's why Luke says this is so cool, because it's this feat of engineering to keep this city constantly in motion.
And that was what was missing, because I'm like, that doesn't look cool. It looks like he's strip mining. It looks like the Empire. He's like strip mining, and it just looks like totally gross. So that's good perspective. So the Empire finds him. The issue ends. Now we're into issue 3.
Yeah, they're after. They were specifically after a mining device rather than like in the book and in here they kind of lead you to. Well, in the book you had a little more context, but in here they're like, are the Empire here to get Leia and Luke again? Like, what's going on? They weren't. They were there to steal something else.
Nah, but why?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as we start episode 3, so Han flies up to fight the Empire, and we get some actual Star Wars fighting and ships and explosions and things of that nature. But they end up, the Empire kind of moves along their way, and I do love when when we focus back on the planet, you see Lando for the first time. He is wearing this straight up pimp gear. He looks like he should be in Tombstone. Because he looks like a gunslinger. He's just not wearing the hat, but it's still
he's wearing a big old jacket. With duster jacket.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good look. I did, and again, I know I'm picking on kind of the particulars of the layout of this, but the word bubbles go back and forth, and this is a little more interesting later when you find out. Everybody's talking, and it looks like one of the bubbles is pointed at Chewie, and he's talking in like basic and like regular talk until he just says "Growlf" at one point. So, but that will come back around in a different way, not from him.
In the next issue, I think is where it comes up.
And I was going to say, so they figure out that they got to hide Leia somewhere, and it's going to be Kashyyyk, and I think they put an extra Y in there, so it's Kashyyyk with 3 Ys. But they make a remark that, I thought Wookiees discourage outsiders visiting, and I'm like, I guess they didn't see the holiday special because everybody was there on Life Day doing the big song. So but this would be the first mention of Kashyyyk for people who mercifully did not see the holiday special, because there hadn't been any other reference before this. So it's not like Zahn really coined it, but he was the first one.
Yeah, I don't think he coined this one. I believe he coined Coruscant, but he didn't coin
Yes, nice. Lando's ship is the Lady Luck. Yikes.
Which hilariously, visually has not changed since this. It makes an appearance in multiple different media, video games, and fun fact, it is the same model of ship that Cad Bane steals in the Bounty Hunter arc in the Clone Wars.
What? What's the name of the?
I don't remember what it is in the Clone Wars.
It's the such and such so and so. Luke has to get out on his own. Oh, this is where we have. Here is where we have the disciplinary deal.
Yes.
When we're back on the so when Vader disciplines somebody, he finds a crewman who screwed up a tractor beam. And he said, who did that? He was like, it was me, sir. I'm sorry. I didn't anticipate what. He's like, well, who's your supervisor? He's like, oh, it's Lieutenant Smith. And Thrawn just decapitates this guy.
Not the supervisor. I'm like, he decapitates the tractor control guy.
Oh, I thought.
He decapitates the tractor control guy because the tractor control guy does not take ownership of his failure.
Right. My onus being, like, at least with Vader, he would choke people out, and they would just be. And there's the cleanup is you can just haul off a dude a lot more easily who's not in two parts.
In the book, it's not really clear that he's decapitated, as I recall.
Okay,
but he's
maybe
dead.
maybe that was just a little bit of flourish, I guess.
Yeah.
This is interesting, and it's funny because it shows up in another EU comic years later when they had the basically the Star Wars Infinities, kind of the Star Wars what if at the end of episode 4 they didn't destroy the Death Star.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, Luke has to after the fight in that first issue of that, he has to abandon his X-Wing and float through space to get onto the Falcon, which illustrates the fact that the X-Wing flight suit, which makes perfect sense with all the bits and bobs it has, is an EVA suit. It is, when you pull the mask down, it's like an astronaut suit.
Yeah,
and they show that in this.
Seal it, which
I think is super cool. And if I have that complete cosplay, though I don't really cosplay anymore. I did drop the bucks for that, so someday I hope to bust it out again. Mm-hmm. But it does come with flares and all this different, like it comes with a harness and all this different kind of stuff. So, and it comes with a chest pack, which obviously has air in it because you can hook it up to a respirator or whatever. So It was a really cool design that you've never seen fleshed out canonically. So I think that's pretty cool. Yep. So, I love. And Luke as he's doing this, I love that one of the thought bubbles he's having, he's clearly cursing, but the letter is in Arabic because he's like, that was pretty cool.
Well, because he pulls like this weird maneuver he basically burns out his hyperdrive while he's getting away.
Yeah.
And so he's cursing at his X-Wing.
He's saying,
I just broken.
Carabash and not Felger Carb. That's from old Battlestar Galactica. What's
Dank
the other
Ferric.
big one that they said? Dank Ferric. Yes, exactly. Back on Kashyyyk, these Wookiees that greet Leia and them are speaking English or basic. And I'm like, what the fuck was going on with Chewbacca's family?
Just the one does.
I know, but he figured he could make a lot of money doing Rosetta Stone.
In the book, they explain it. So they don't really do it here. So it's one of those things where you lose some.
Yeah, after seeing 10 minutes of the holiday special, these Wookiees growling at each other, it's like, come on.
Yeah, in the book, Ralra has basically a split palate, and so he can't He's got like this weird thing where he can make extra sounds that Wookiees can't.
He's a cunning linguist.
Yeah. Basically,
I couldn't help myself.
So he can make sounds that other Wookiees can't. So he can actually speak basic, unlike anybody. But he adds extra sounds even then because
he puts a little stank on it.
Yeah. I
did write, and I'd have to go back and look. I've mentioned several times my introduction to comics in general was Marvel's run from the 70s and 80s, and there was an issue of that because I can picture the comic in my mind, and I think it was drawn by artist Ron Friends, who's someone that we've had on the show twice to interview. That he drew. That I know that they went there because the cover of it is Han and Chewie standing amongst a bunch of Wookiees on Kashyyyk.
Yeah,
and I feel like it was named. I can't remember if it was named in the holiday special or maybe it was. I have to do some research on that, or I'd be happy to take notes. But I know but this was a little bit more fleshed out. So, Luke still fiddling with his ship. He has another craft come up and they're like, yeah, we can help you out with blah, blah, blah. And they beam him up like Thanos' ship does in the MCU, which I think is awesome. Yeah. It's like the communion aliens, and like Fire in the Sky. I noted two things here. Han mentions, I think in the first issue to somebody that he resigned his commission as General Solo.
Yep.
And then Luke mentions here he resigned his commission 4 years prior. Why is he still flying around in an X-Wing then? Why did he resign his commission?
The expanded universe is never really clear on how that works, but I guess the idea is that Luke's X-Wing is just because he's a hero of the Republic and he's had it for so long, it's just his ship now.
Perks. Yeah, that's one of his perks. Yeah, and the same thing with Han. Obviously, Han wouldn't give up. He didn't, give his ship to the rebellion. It was always his, but Luke didn't. It was his and it wasn't his. But obviously, the inference is that Luke always has had the same X-Wing because in canon, he, when he exiles himself, as we see him in The Last Jedi, to Ahch-To, he sinks it.
Yeah, he
but
still
it's
had
still
his
functional
X-wing.
because
So
because Rey is able to revive it and it still works, and then she flies it into final battle in the end of that movie that we won't mention, the Star Wars movie. I guess that I kind of answered my own question. They don't want to be a part of the machine in that way. They just want to be independent contractors. Han wants to do his thing. Luke wants to be a
Luke
Jedi.
wants to be a Jedi and needs to be separate from the New Republic
Military.
chain of command so that he can do what he needs to do.
Yeah, so we're wrapping up this issue. Luke meets Mara Jade in the flesh after meeting her in the Dagobah cave, and she either said, or the other character who beamed him up says, "Well, she really fucking hates you, dude. I don't know what the deal
says
is."
that to him.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, it's like the beginning of any great romance, right? And then Luke gets hit by something, and the issue's over.
Yeah, he gets zapped,
and that wraps up.
And that's it. So
and that wraps up our arc. So let me ask you, having read the book, and then we've essentially split the storyline of the book in half. I don't know if this mirrors it that closely. If you would consider Luke getting zapped like the midway of it, but
it's close to
like with everything, I'd like to give it a an out of 10 rating. This is like a 7 out of 10 for me.
Yeah.
I dialed back, the shortcomings with the art, the weird lettering, what you're now explaining to me is being like, well, they really fleshed this out more and you would understand this. But I thought it was, for those of us who are crappy at reading books or just missed it. But, obviously Dark Horse had the license at this time. We're publishing the comics. This was a lot of people's first introduction to the story, which is a great story. I'm enjoying it very much. Yeah. But I thought it was a great adaptation. And again, I don't really know how it stacks up. You've really educated me on that, which I appreciate. But creating new characters that are so endearing that they have stood the test of time. They've crossed the threshold from the upside down of non-canonical works into Hawkins, into the employ a Stranger Things aphorism that had become real. But I knocked off a couple of points because I couldn't stand the art. The lettering just annoyed me. Some of the dialogue was hard to read for that reason. But I'm really invested. I really like it, and I don't know where it's going. I don't remember anything, so I'm excited to see the wrap up. So what about you?
I would probably give it a 6.57. And that's mostly for similar reasons, but also just because there's so much left out. Some of that is because you're doing an adaptation, but sometimes it's like, okay, so if you're doing that scene, you really need this extra little bit of context for this to work. So like not having Obi-Wan as a ghost in the beginning kind of made that scene kind of weird.
Yeah, even I looked at it and I thought, why is he just bitching at he's like, Grandpa Simpson, old man yells at cloud. Nobody wants to see that.
And so like they had like Obi-Wan in the clouds in the distance, but kind of like Mufasa sort of deal. It's like you kind of got an idea, but it was
this is CNN.
Yeah, but it wasn't really. But it didn't have the whole context of like, in the book it was Obi-Wan going, I am moving on to I'm moving beyond this tenuous connection to this world. I'm moving on to the Force afterlife, basically. Which obviously our understanding of how Force ghosts work is a little different now. But at the time it was like, well, he's recently dead, and so he can still talk to us. But then after that point, he moves on or whatever.
Right.
And so it was basically Obi-Wan going, I can't guide you all the time. You need to make your own way and make the Order your own.
Suck it up.
Which is actually a very helpful line that is a through line for Luke's character arc throughout this trilogy. And so you're missing it. And that kind of that undercuts Luke's character development here, which I don't think was a good choice. So
gotcha.
So that's kind of why it drops down a little bit for me. Is just there's some character arc stuff that's missing, and I understand that you got to cut some stuff because it's 26 pages in a comic book. That's about as much as you can do, but
but it's like it's a matter of editing. It's like
it's like you could have
things that should be left on the cutting room floor. You should take this shot instead of that shot.
It's like you could have cut a panel of some of the extra stuff that happened on Bimasari.
Right.
And then just added a panel for Luke talking to Obi-Wan and maybe an extra panel for Thrawn teaching Pelion, because that's a very important thing in this whole in this whole story.
Right.
Because it helps you see who Thrawn is as a tactician, and that's very, very important.
Solid.
So
Good deal. All right. Well, we will move on to finish this up, but I've enjoyed this. I'm excited. Something that we're going to do in between talking about different arcs from the shows and the new content when it comes up is to cover comics like this because they're all, as I said, widely available. For Marvel Unlimited. And again, I'm giving you an unpaid plug for Marvel Unlimited because if you're someone who enjoys Marvel comics the way that I do, or if you enjoy Star Wars in particular, or other products that were licensed to 20th Century Fox before Disney absorbed them, like Aliens or Predator or whatever it is, there is a wealth of different stuff to find there. So I highly recommend it, and hopefully that means that check will be coming my way because I'm very, very interested in seeing that. But with that, that is our show. Peter, where do people find you out there?
So you can find me around the interwebs at Petrus Aquinas on most social medias. Mostly you can just find me on our Discord. You can also find me over on ELH's channel where we do Star Trek Adventures and other role-playing games. And then you can find me behind the scenes on Starship Excelsior.
Rock and roll. I like it. Well, you can find me across the socials, not X, as at the C3, TheCeeThree. I also take a strong hand in the Secret Friends Unite socials at all of those handles, or all of those places, but also in particular TikTok, which I do my little 3-minute chats where I just talk about something I'm enjoying. Just occurred to me, I just got a new stand for my phone that I record those on. I should be recording those down here because my studio does not get shown off the way that it used to when we did videos all the time, which I thought, an hour video of us sitting here chatting is not very interesting, but 3 minutes, people actually watch the videos. I actually get some decent number counts of people watching them on our TikTok and our YouTube. So I'm going to start shooting them down here so you can enjoy more of my studio. I think maybe I'll shoot a video today and put it out there just walking around the studio because it's been a long time since I've done that. But we'll take it from there. But and of course, our Secret Friends Unite Discord, great place to have chats about pop culture and geek stuff. But as always, our mailbag is open, secretfriendsunite@gmail.com. Let us know what you thought about this comic. Let us know what you thought about the Star Wars news we talked about, or absolutely anything else that you're enjoying in the world of nerd. We want to hear about it, and we may use your comments on the show. But with that, that's our show. I will let you know that sharing is caring, and to keep on trucking.
May the Force be with you.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.